The ocean of being, a journey beyond the surface of existence. Introduction. The primordial gift. In the vast expanse of existence, where stars wheel through darkness and mountains rise from ancient depths, there exists a gift so immediate, so intimate, that it precedes all questions and answers alike. This gift is consciousness itself, the luminous awareness that renders all things visible, the silent witness that knows it exists, the sacred ground upon which the entire cosmos unfolds its mystery. Before philosophy constructs its elaborate temples of thought, before science dissects the fabric of matter, before religion names its gods, there is this: the simple, profound, undeniable fact that one is aware, that one exists as a conscious presence within the infinite theater of reality. The seeker who embarks upon the mystical path soon discovers that this consciousness is not merely a tool for examining the world, not simply a mirror reflecting external phenomena. It is rather the very essence of what one is, the deepest truth of existence itself. Like a pearl diver who must descend through layers of ocean to reach the treasure hidden on the seabed, the spiritual aspirant must journey through the successive veils of experience to discover the luminous depth that has always been present, always been here, always been now. This is the great paradox that has echoed through the halls of every mystical tradition. That which is sought is also the seeker, that which is most distant is simultaneously most near, that the journey's end was present at its beginning. The path does not lead somewhere else but rather deeper into what has always been, a descent into the very ground of being itself. The three faces of the One. In the eternal present where all authentic spiritual experience unfolds, consciousness reveals itself as a trinity that is simultaneously one. Like light that manifests as wave, particle, and illumination itself, like water that appears as ocean, current, and droplet, so too does consciousness present itself through three aspects that are, in their essence, inseparable and unified. First, there is pure consciousness itself, that vast, unbounded awareness that simply is, without attribute or limitation, without beginning or end. It is the infinite canvas upon which all experiences are painted, the eternal silence within which all sounds arise and dissolve, the spaceless space that contains all worlds. This primordial consciousness is like the ocean in its totality, deep beyond measure, vast beyond conception, containing within itself all possible movements yet remaining fundamentally still, fundamentally whole, fundamentally one. Second, there is awareness, that luminous capacity to know, to perceive, to embrace experience. Awareness is consciousness turned toward phenomena, the light of knowing that illuminates whatever enters its field. When awareness remains vast and unlimited, embracing the totality of what is without fixation or preference, it exists as pure awareness, a mirror so perfect that it reflects everything yet retains no image, a space so complete that it excludes nothing. This is the state the mystics have called witnessing consciousness, the eternal observer, the eye of the divine that sees all without judgment, without separation, without the burden of identification. Yet awareness possesses a mysterious capacity. It can contract its infinite embrace to focus upon something particular, something specific within the vast field of existence. When this focusing occurs, the third aspect emerges, the sense of I, the individual self, the personal identity that experiences itself as separate, as distinct, as something definite moving through space and time. This I is like a wave upon the ocean's surface, appearing separate yet composed entirely of the ocean itself, seeming to have its own identity yet ultimately inseparable from the whole. The wave rises, moves, eventually dissolves back into the sea, but at no point does it cease to be ocean. Here lies one of the great mysteries that the contemplative must penetrate. The I is simultaneously real and illusory, both true and false, depending on the depth from which one perceives. From the surface, the wave appears autonomous, independent, separate from other waves. From the depths, all waves are recognized as temporary expressions of one ocean, temporary forms of one substance, temporary movements of one reality. The surface and the depth. In the spiritual life, there exists a fundamental choice, though few recognize it as such. Every moment presents the soul with two directions, toward the surface or toward the depth, toward the multiplicity of phenomena or toward the unity of being, toward the complexity of the I with its endless desires and fears or toward the simplicity of pure existence itself. The surface life is not without its beauty and its purpose. Like sunlight dancing upon water, it dazzles and fascinates. The world of particular perceptions, the colors and forms, the sounds and sensations, the thoughts and emotions that constitute personal experience, creates a tapestry of remarkable intricacy. The I, that small projection of being upon the surface of existence, moves through this tapestry as both weaver and thread, creating and being created by the patterns of experience. Yet those who have glimpsed the depths report a different kind of beauty, a different order of truth. They speak of a realm where all particular perceptions dissolve like morning mist, where the I with its endless dramas and narratives falls silent, where even awareness itself, that luminous capacity to know, releases its grip on phenomena. What remains is indescribable in conventional language, for it lies beyond the reach of concepts and categories. The mystics have called it by many names: the Absolute, the ground of being, the infinite, the eternal, God beyond God, the nameless, the void that is simultaneously fullness. This depth is not elsewhere. It is not a distant heaven to be reached after death, not a special state reserved for saints and sages. It is here, now, always, the very foundation upon which the surface plays out its endless variations. Like the still depths beneath ocean waves, like the silent space in which all sounds occur, like the darkness of space that holds all stars, this depth is prior to and present within every experience, every moment, every breath. The tragedy of ordinary human existence is that most souls spend their entire lives upon the surface, mesmerized by the play of phenomena, identified completely with a small I and its concerns, never suspecting the infinite ocean of being upon which they float. The spiritual journey is nothing other than the gradual recognition of this depth, the slow or sudden awakening to what has always been present but overlooked, ignored, forgotten in the fascination with surfaces. The path of return. How then does one discover this depth? How does consciousness recognize its own true nature beyond the veils of particular perception? The mystical traditions offer not complicated techniques or elaborate systems, but rather a profound simplicity that paradoxically proves difficult for those habituated to complexity. The path is one of relinquishment rather than acquisition, of subtraction rather than addition, of letting go rather than grasping. It is not a matter of adding spiritual experiences to one's collection of experiences, but of releasing the very mechanism of collection itself. It is not about becoming something greater but about recognizing what one has always been beneath the layers of becoming. The seeker begins by observing the content of awareness, the thoughts, emotions, sensations, perceptions that flow through consciousness like clouds across the sky. At first, one is completely identified with this content, believing, I am this thought, I am this emotion, I am this body, I am this story. The spiritual practice involves a gentle but persistent questioning. Who or what is aware of these thoughts? Who witnesses these emotions? What is the space in which sensations arise and pass? Through this inquiry, a separation begins to occur. Not a metaphysical dualism but a recognition of space, of distinction. One realizes that thoughts come and go, but something remains constant. Emotions surge and subside, but something witnesses unchanged. The body transforms from infancy to old age, but something observes throughout. This recognition represents the first great liberation. The discovery that one is not the content of experience but the awareness in which experience occurs. Yet even this realization, profound as it is, represents only a station on the journey, not its ultimate destination. For pure awareness, vast and limitless as it is, still maintains a subtle sense of relationship. The witness watching the witnessed, the knower knowing the known, the observer observing the observed. The final step, if indeed it can be called a step, for it is more accurately the cessation of all steps, involves the release of even this witnessing stance. Here language strains against its limits, for what must be described transcends the very structure of subject and object that language presupposes. When awareness itself is released, when even the subtle sense of I am aware dissolves, what remains is pure being. Neither subject nor object, neither self nor other, neither here nor there, neither now nor then. It is the ocean recognizing that it was never truly divided into waves, that all apparent separation was temporary, superficial, ultimately illusory. This is not unconsciousness, not a blank void or empty nothingness. Rather, it is the fullness of existence itself, prior to all division, prior to all particularity, prior to all the mechanisms by which being appears to fragment into multiplicity. The mystics report that this is simultaneously the most intimate and the most vast experience possible. Intimate because it is one's own deepest nature, vast because it encompasses all existence without boundary or limitation. The abandonment of processes. The mystical traditions speak paradoxically of a pathless path, a practice of non-practice, an effort of effortlessness. What can these paradoxes mean? They point toward a crucial recognition. The depth of being cannot be reached through the same processes by which the surface life operates. One cannot think one's way to the absolute, analyze one's way to God, or achieve one's way to enlightenment. Every process of the mind, every movement of the will, every activity of the eye perpetuates the very structure of separation that obscures the underlying unity. To seek the infinite through effort is like trying to catch the wind in a net or hold water in a clenched fist. The very attempt ensures failure. The spiritual aspirant must learn a different way, a way that appears to the ordinary mind as no way at all. This is the art of letting be, of non-doing, of wu-wei as the Taoists called it. It involves the cessation of all attempts to control, manipulate, or acquire spiritual states. It requires the abandonment of all techniques, all methods, all paths themselves. When the external perception of sensory phenomena is released, when the internal processes of thought and emotion are allowed to settle, when even awareness as activity ceases its reaching and grasping, then, in that pregnant silence, in that fertile emptiness, the infinite being emerges. But this emergence is not an event in time, not something that happens. It is rather the recognition of what has always been the case, the unveiling of what was never truly hidden, the discovery of what was never actually lost. like the sky that is always present but sometimes obscured by clouds, like the sun that continues to shine even when we close our eyes. The infinite being has never been absent. It is only our attention, fixated on the surface phenomena, that has overlooked the ever-present foundation. The spiritual journey thus reveals itself as a great cosmic joke. We spend years searching for what we already are, striving to reach what we never left, seeking to become what we have always been. The enlightenment that seems so distant, so difficult, so reserved for rare souls turns out to be the most natural, most ordinary, most immediately available reality. Once the obscuring veils of identification and separation are removed. The sacred silence. In that space beyond all processes, beyond all seeking, beyond even the subtle movements of spiritual aspiration, there exists a silence that is not merely the absence of sound. This is the silence that the scriptures call the peace that surpasses understanding, the quietude that Meister Eckhart described as the desert of the Godhead, the stillness at the heart of the whirling cosmos. This silence is alive, vibrant, pregnant with infinite potential. It is not empty but full of being itself, undifferentiated and complete. Here, all the questions that tormented the seeking mind dissolve not because they have been answered, but because they are recognized as arising from a false premise, from the illusion of separation. What is the meaning of life? What happens after death? Why does suffering exist? These questions presuppose a questioner separate from existence, a soul apart from being. In the silence of pure being, there is no such separation, and thus no question, no answer, only the eternal isness that contains and transcends all possibilities. Those who have rested in this silence speak of it with awe and wonder, yet also with a sense of recognition, of homecoming. It is not strange or foreign but rather the most familiar reality, more familiar than one's own face, more intimate than one's own breath, more immediate than one's own thoughts. It is, they say, like waking from a dream and recognizing that one's true identity was never the dream character but the dreamer itself, like an actor removing a mask and remembering the face that was always underneath. Conclusion: the eternal now. The mystical path is not a journey through space or time but a deepening into the eternal present, a descent into the here and now that reveals itself as infinite and absolute. It requires no special abilities, no rare gifts, no peculiar circumstances. It asks only for the willingness to turn attention from the surface to the depth, from the particular to the universal, from the I to the being. This turning is simultaneously the simplest and most profound action possible. Simple because it requires no complicated techniques or elaborate preparations, profound because it revolutionizes one's entire relationship with existence. Where there was fear, peace emerges. Where there was grasping, contentment arises. Where there was the lonely I struggling through an alien world, there is the recognition of universal consciousness experiencing itself through infinite forms. The awakened soul does not abandon the world of phenomena, does not reject the surface life with its colors and forms, its joys and sorrows, its endless play of opposites. Rather, such a soul sees through the surface to the depth, recognizes the waves as ocean, perceives the infinite in the finite, discovers the eternal in the temporal. Life continues, but it is now transparent, revealing at every moment the luminous being that underlies and pervades all existence. This is the great teaching that echoes across millennia, whispered by sages and sung by mystics, carved in stone temples and written in the wind, that thou art, I am that, the kingdom of heaven is within. The infinite being, the absolute reality, the divine ground is not elsewhere, not other. It is here, now, always, the very substance of existence, the very essence of what you are. To know this is to know everything. To be this is to be free. In the end, the mystical journey reveals itself as a return to the beginning, a recognition of what was never absent. Consciousness discovers itself as reality, the seeker finds itself as the sought, the wave recognizes itself as ocean. And in that recognition, all separation dissolves into the vast ocean of being, where multiplicity and unity, form and emptiness, time and eternity are known as aspects of one seamless whole, one infinite mystery, one eternal now.